There's been a popular narrative to say that side control is completely useless and dead. It's not, but it's just not as good as mount. If you do ordinarily pass to side control and you find it difficult to get towards mount, I'm going to show you some attacks that you can use that are reliable and very high percentage. So when we're in side control, we obviously want to stop his knees and elbows getting connected on both sides, really, because if he gets his knees and elbows connected, I can lay on top of him here, but I'm not really exerting that much pressure. I'm on top of his skeleton and it's very easy for him to start to hold me off. Conversely, if I'm on the inside and I've got a crossface and an underhook, I'm in a very good position to start to exert some pressure into him, and he doesn't like this as much as he likes his elbows and knees getting back on the inside. So when we're inside control, that's our main, shit all over the mats. That's our main port of call, is stopping him from being able to get his knees and elbows connected. So when we're in this position, whether we have upper body grips or not, let's start with no upper body grips. We'll work our way into getting to an underhook. If he tries to bring his knee towards the inside, what he has to do on his left leg is invert his knee down towards the floor, make sure his heel is pointed towards the ceiling, and then bring that on the inside. What we have to create in our mind is a sensitivity towards stopping that. So if I ever feel that he's bringing his knee up towards the pocket of my hip, what I want to do is make sure that I continually walk down his hips and get my knee underneath his tailbone. I don't always have to do this, because sometimes I find, especially for the shorter armed people in the room, when you're trying to then travel back up towards the body, you can't maintain this position of the knee underneath the tailbone. You're eventually going to have to move away from it. So what I want you to develop is a bit of a sensitivity here. So if you're too high up, it's going to be really easy for him to introduce that knee. We're not going to be too high up. If we're too low down, it's going to be difficult for us to travel up the body and start to perform attacks. So when he starts to bring that knee towards the pocket of my hip and he starts to walk his hips away, that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to shut that down. You have to be ready for this at most points, but once you've defeated it a couple of times, most people are going to accept it. Most people are going to start to fight you at the upper body. And what's that going to look like? He's usually going to use cross frames. Yeah, exactly. He's going to go up underneath the elbow here. He's usually just going to try and keep my chest away from being at his chest. It's a really easy method of getting this out of the way to give us an underhook that we're going to start to use. So I've got my crossface in. This is usually very achievable. If they're giving you dramas with inside bicep ties on the other arm, inside bicep ties on the crossface arm, what you're going to start to do is start to come on the inside, get your thumb to the inside, get your elbow on top of his elbow, and then start to punch your hand down so that your middle finger can get into the lat. If you've got a cross frame in here, what we're going to do is we're going to start to search this hand this time, knuckles facing towards the arm here, and then we're going to start to link our hands together underneath his shoulder, widening that hand outside the line of our lat, and then we're going to start to put our head over the top of his shoulder. Now, when he tries to use his elbow, it's very difficult. When he tries to get his hand inside the line of my face, it's also very difficult. If you find that they are getting their hand inside the line of your face, just turn your chin towards theirs and block it with your head. Once you've done that sufficiently, you can start to come out underneath, and now we're in our crossface underhook and we're ready to attack. So I want you guys to think about, when you start to feel him using his knee to the inside of the pocket of the hip, this is the death of the position, and he starts to win here. We're going to have to go back out into hip and knee passing and repass his guard. So when you are in this position, I want you to think, is his knee on the pocket of my hip or is it not? If it starts to get there, you're just going to walk down towards his hips, flatten his hips out, get your knee underneath his tailbone, and it's going to be very difficult for him to be able to move from here. Then he's going to start to fight at the upper body instead of fighting at the lower body. Okay, no problem. If he's giving you dramas on the far side of the body with an inside bicep tie, we're going to start to bring our thumb towards the inside. We're going to get our elbow over the top of his elbow. If he tries to frame me in the same fashion now, it's physically impossible. My arm's in the way. I'm going to reach down into his armpit, take a middle finger in the lat, and then now I've got to deal with this far side frame. Simplest way to do that is take my hand, lace it on the inside so my knuckles face down towards the floor, and then I'm going to connect my hands in a 10-finger grip, widen this outside the line of his elbow, and then I'm going to put my head in the way. Now when he tries to bring his elbow back in, it's very difficult. If he tries to bring his hand back in through the gap, I just turn my face down to the other way, and now he can't use it. Roll him up, get into a crossface, and then we get in our crossface underhook, and then we're good to go. Let's give that a go. This is very important. As soon as they decide to start to introduce their hand underneath the chin, just take your chin towards where your hand is, and now if he tries to bring it in, it's going to be extremely difficult, even if they can fold their arm in half. From here, we're not going to stay here for very long, and what I want to do from here is I'm going to roll him up using my hand in the back of his rear delt here, but I'm not going to just use my bicep in this case, because even with a massive strength discrepancy, if I try and hold Spewy here, he can usually start to bring his arm back down. So I'm gonna take my hand underneath his rear delt, I'm gonna put my elbow inside the line of his ribs, and I'm gonna take my chin over my hand. I'm not gonna give this much force, but if he tries to lay back down, it's actually very difficult. It's mechanically very sound. So once we're in this position, I need to get over the head. The way that I get over the head is I start to use my off hand that I can base with and start to push his head in between the line of my knees, and then I can sit over the top here. Immediately I'm gonna go for Kimura. I don't just let go of this arm and then hope that his arm is just gonna stay there floating in position for me to throw my second hand in. I'm gonna use my initial grip that I had to peel him up off the mat, up towards my chest so that his elbow's pinned, and then I'm gonna circle my secondary hand underneath so I've got both arms in at once. Then I take my second hand out. Notice that I've still got his elbow pinned towards my chest. I then take my grip over the front. I'm not using my thumb in this grip because it's gonna be doubled up with my wrist. Usually if you have a one-on-one grip, using a thumb is a good idea because it's gonna be more difficult for him to strip than it is this. This is extremely easy for him to strip. But if you're gonna be doubling up with two hands, thumbless grips are usually better because I can start to roll his wrist down, and now when he tries to strip this, it's extremely difficult because of the strength of this grip. Now, if he cannot connect his hands because I've sat over that near side with my near side knee, I'm gonna go straight to Kimuras. Now, for the demonstration purposes in drilling, don't have his elbow up like this. Put his elbow down like this. If his elbow's up towards his shoulder, it's an extremely catastrophic break with not a lot of range of motion here. If it's down here, I can take his arm like a fair degree. You don't have really mobile shoulders.
No, I don't.
Your hips are fucking crazy, but your shoulders don't even move properly.
I don't know why.
I can do better than this. I've got muscle. Anyway, so we're gonna take his hand down towards basically the waistband here just to be nice to our training partner. Then we're gonna come off our left foot. I'm going to guide our right elbow, the one that's holding the wrist, all the way down to the floor as I bunny hop my other knee around his arm and towards the side of his face. Sorry, Spewy, it's a bit awkward. Then I'm going to start to step up nice and big with my left foot. Reason being is that he wants to sit up to defend this position. And now while my weight's all the way over the top of his shoulders here, it's going to be extremely difficult for him to sit up. If we don't make this adjustment and I try and do the lazy pushing his hand behind his back, all he does is follow with me, start to roll up, and now we're in bottom side control, and he's winning this position. Even with a very immobile shoulder, he's just going to extend his arm, and I'm probably not going to get the break that I like. Let's go back. Oh, very nice. If I step up above his head, he tries to do the exact same thing. He's just not going anywhere. Now, it's not a push underneath, it's a pulling up of the elbow. And what I want you to start to do is bring your left elbow nice and wide, and then start to lift the elbow underneath his elbow until we inevitably get a tap. Notice how my grip is kind of fucked up here. Luke was showing this not too long ago, and I was kind of trying to figure out how I could keep my hands in the same position. Just keep your wrist laid, your left hand laid over your right wrist so that you can perform the lift, knowing that you're not going to be performing a push. So, crossface underhook. He tries to bring his hand on the inside. I just tuck my chin over my hand. It's very effective. Now what I'm going to start to do is cup his rear delt, bring my elbow in front of his ribs, and then lay my chin over his hand. Get your partner to start to try and back roll, and they're not going to be able to. Once we've been able to do this, I'm going to take my free hand, my posting hand, to start to stuff his head in between my legs. I'm going to lift his elbow to pin it towards my chest, exchange, and then find the wrist. Notice how we're not using thumb grips, we're using thumbless grips, and then we're going to roll his wrist in towards. It makes it extremely difficult for him to be able to extend his hand. There's a very tight grip. From here, I'm going to put his hand behind his back, not up between his shoulder blades. Ordinarily, if it was a competition, by all means, take it up to here. But for now, just take it where his waist is. Then we're going to take our weight off that left side as I guide my elbow down towards the floor. Both elbows hit the floor. My right knee bunny hops his elbow and then gets right up nice beside his head. My left foot starts to take a big extended stance here. So when he tries to sit up into me, he's not able to. I'm laying completely across his shoulders. And now it's just a matter of widening my elbow, lifting at the elbow joint, and then getting the tap. Let's give that a go. One of the most common things that can happen, yeah, obviously they lock their hands up, whether it's your shin pinning their bicep or they've excluded their bicep from underneath your shin. We'll look at both of these. So when they're not giving you a big gap between their elbow and their ribs on the bottom side, usually what you're going to start to look to do is throw your leg over the top for Tarico Plata. Or if their legs are in this fashion, you can usually start to dominate the space between their legs and travel down the body towards the legs. We'll look at both of those. So if his legs are together like this, I'm not thinking about going down into the legs, I'm thinking about Tarico Plata. If his legs are open, I can usually do one or the other depending on your flexibility. Sometimes I find that it's actually quite difficult, even if you do unweight this leg nicely, to throw over if his leg's in the way. That makes sense. So if his leg's down, it's really easy for me to start to throw my leg over. If his leg's up, you've got to be pretty flexible to start to do this, but that he does open the space between his legs. So it's a good cue to just remind yourself based on what his legs are doing. You don't want to try and come up here and then fall off and have to post your hands and then lose the position. So this is predicated on his elbow being tight towards his ribs, so we can't step in or we can't get our knee in between. And then we're looking at what his legs are doing down at the lower body. We're going Tarico Plata if his legs are together. We're going inside Senkaku if his legs aren't together. So let's do Tarico Plata first. What we want to do from this position is, like I said, unweight our left leg as much as possible by taking our weight over the arm that we have. And then as I start to throw my heel over the top of his arse area here, I'm going to undo so that my right hand, the one underneath his elbow, can slap my quad. Just like this. Now I've threaded my leg over the top of his grip, and it doesn't really matter how strong he is from this position. His grip is eventually going to be broken, or his elbow is going to be broken even if he does hold his hands together. So unlucky for little Spewy down here. Once we've got to this position, we're not going to perform a break here. We actually want to start to look in the opposite direction. So I'm 45 towards his hips at this stage. I want to be looking 45 towards his shoulders. How do we do that? I'm going to take my hand down onto the mat and post. And then I'm going to take my right foot up in a similar fashion that we were doing when we were stepping over the head for the Kimura. This time I'm sitting on top of him. I'm going to use my posted hand to start to draw my left knee away from my chest as I face 45 degrees over his shoulder here. Now for the break, what I'm focusing on now is doubling up the grip with my right hand on top of my quad, and I'm going to extend my quad away from my chest, and I get a pretty powerful break. This time we're using our legs for Kimura, and it's very effective. So one more time. We've got our Kimura grip. He started to exclude his arm for whatever reason he's done, outside the line of my shin. If I had it shin pinned, we'd be doing something different. For obvious reasons, I can't get my leg up and over. If his legs are together, we're going to start to go towards Tarico Plata. If his legs are open, we'll go to inside Senkaku. We'll do that one next. But if his legs are together, we're going to start to come up and over the top, unweighting this left leg. And then I'm going to open my grip as my heel threads across his butt here, so that I can start to slap my own quad. I want this as deep as possible where my fingers go over the front. If it's towards the midline here, it's not really going to be that effective. You might get slippage, but if it's over here, it's very robust. I'm going to take my hand over the far side of his butt, and then I'm going to start to base up on my right foot, sitting my weight on top of his grip. Now for the finish, spin a little bit. Try not to break your arm.
Okay.
Thank you. Right hand over the quad, left leg, and I'm going to start to extend that leg as I face 45 degrees over his shoulders. Let's give that a go. This time, elbow glued to the ribs, but he's realized that we're going for Tarico Plata, so he's blocking us with his knee. No problem. I'm not going to forcibly try and step up and over this. Even if you're hyper flexible, you likely won't make it happen. I'm obviously not hyper flexible, so it's poorly demonstrated. What we can start to do is dominate the inside space between his legs. So in a similar fashion that we were going to go over the leg for the Tarico Plata, we're just going to start to unweight our left leg. We're going to sit our heel in between his knees here, just making sure that I go over this knee. If I don't go over this knee, he tucks it in behind, this is kind of retarded and you're not going to end up with a leg lock, you'll just end up getting booted that way. So I sit over the top of his knee, and then I start to bring my right knee from being behind his shoulder blades and just scooting it around the corner so that it connects with my heel here. Once I'm in this position, I don't want to take the bait of just thinking about attacking the easy leg to attack. I want to double up my grips on the secondary leg, and I'm going to sit towards my right hip, making sure that I claim this secondary leg. Now there's a ton of options here. Probably one of the simpler options to use here is start to go undercross underneath the primary leg. Then we're going to start to come out and over the top of the secondary, making sure that the weak part of my grip, which is usually where my forefinger and thumb failed to meet, is wedged into the strong part of my hip. So now if Spewy tries to strip this grip, knowing that the weak part of my grip is underneath, he actually drives his heel into my hip, which keeps his leg stuck. If he tries to point his foot towards the ceiling, my hand should do a good enough job of pressing that into my hip so that he can't. The reason we do this is because I don't want to just let go, try and grab the heel, and then he turns exactly right, he turns his big toe down towards the floor. If I've got his secondary leg stuck, as I reach back for the heel, he can't actually turn his hips because I've got his secondary leg. Once I've taken a dig on the heel, I can start to perform my break with one hand so that when he does try and turn that direction, he's not able to. He actually loads his own leg up because of my, my heel hook grip here. I'm not gonna break him with one hand. I'm gonna extract my undercross now. I'm gonna start to take on my wrist to wrist grip, or my palm to palm, or my butterfly grip, however you wanna call it. I'm gonna keep nice and high, tight hands. I'm gonna introduce some internal pressure with my left knee for the break. So, this time, he's got his elbow glued to his ribs. He's doing a good job, and this time he connects his knee and elbow. No problem. We're gonna start to shift down towards the body. Try not to kick your training partner in the nuts. I've done it many times, and it definitely hurts. Sorry, Speely. But once we've got our foot in between the legs, we're gonna make sure that we go below the line of his knee. We're not gonna try and go above the line of the knee. We're just gonna shift our weight all the way down so that we're sitting on top of our training partner. We're gonna grab the leg, the second leg, not this initial leg, because if we do just sit down to here, he's gonna perform the same turnout. We're gonna have the same problem. Double up on the secondary leg. Start to sit towards your heel, and then wedge your secondary leg over the top of the primary. Now we're gonna go undercross grip, underneath. We're gonna start to extract, making sure that I've got a physical wedge over his leg the entire time. If I'm lazy with this, and I just open this up and try and pass it off, that's gonna happen every single time. Make sure that you've continually got your elbow over the front of his leg so that you can start to claim his ankle here, start to press that down into the hip, and then lift your hip up, or lift your knee up rather. Now when he tries to pull his foot away from the strong part of my grip, he's not able to. If he tries to extract towards the ceiling, he's also not able to. I'm gonna search down for the toes and then catch those toes in my lat and start to peel that elbow back down towards my, my spine. Now I can let his secondary leg go. Because I've already wedged him in place with a heel hook grip, I'm good to go. I make sure my knees are pointed towards the ceiling. I go butterfly grip. I make sure that my hands stay high, just like a guillotine. And I'm gonna introduce left knee pressure and get the finish. Let's give that a go.